Welcome to JoJo's Infinite Universe, where we dive deep into the realm of infinite possibilities. I'm JoJo, your guide on this transformative journey, where we share people's experiences to realities they didn't feel were possible. Have you ever felt stuck, lost, or overwhelmed by life's challenges? Well, you're not alone. But here's the secret: those experiences hold the key to unlocking your inner superpowers. Join me as we experience how self love can turn trauma into triumph and how embracing life's magic can lead to a world of endless potential. Get ready to rewrite your story and unleash the superhero within. Don't forget to turn on your notifications so you don't miss an episode. And be sure to like, subscribe, and share to spread the message of empowerment to others. This is JoJo, and the adventure starts now. I would like to welcome Renee Masse, owner of Valkyrie Mystics. Renee is a soul alignment and ascension psychic coach. We met when I was going through my spiritual awakening, and we met at a psychic fair. And she helped me through a lot of the parts of my journey and helped me to understand what I was going through with my spiritual awakening. Welcome, Renee. Thanks for coming.
I'm so excited to be here. I loved hearing from you and receiving this invitation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes.
You were one of the pivotal people that helped me guide me through some of these heavy emotions and the phases of a spiritual awakening. It can be there's times where you feel like you're really going crazy, and at least I was so thankful that I had some of the preliminary work before it all happened so that I was open enough to understand what was going on. But I feel like there's a lot of people out there right now who might be going through some of these things and not understand what they're experiencing.
Mhm.
So the first thing I want to start off was, in episode 6, I talked about my spiritual awakening. Can you tell everyone about yours and how you came about your spiritual awakening?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I was really young when it happened, honestly. I was 15 years old, and I remember feeling detached. I remember feeling detached from other people and situations, and like you're brought up a certain way with certain people, certain values, certain fundamentals, and possibly a certain religion or spiritual path. And so for me, I was raised Catholic. Nothing against Catholic, just wasn't really just really wasn't it wasn't an aligned fit for me. And I felt that because what had happened was I started questioning things. And that to me is like you're in the beginning of your awakening. If you're like, why is this way? Why do people do this? Why do they think like this? Why do they say these things? And it started like I just started spending more time contemplating and questioning different things that were being taught to me and told to me. And I remember my mom saying it, we had to start planning for my confirmation. And I said, I'm not making my confirmation. And she was like, yeah, you are. And I'm like, no, I'm not, because I don't feel that I need anybody to confirm me for anything, that I can make that decision for myself. I can confirm myself. And that was kind of a blasphemous statement. Like, no, you have to have a priest do this. And I was like, I am a priestess. Like, I can do this myself. And so I was 15. I was young. I was obviously developing in a lot of other different ways too. So how I came about it was rather defiant versus, I think when you're a little bit older and you go through it and you're just like, help. I think a lot of people are like, help me. I don't know what's wrong. But for me at that time, it just felt like I was being pushed into things that didn't feel good to me. And so I had to say no. And then that obviously was met with confrontation. But I didn't stop. I just kept pursuing learning about energy. And this is before internet. This was before we had a home computer. This was long before Google. So it was really just going to the local library and local bookstores, sitting on the floor reading books about energy, astrology, metaphysical stuff, chakras, and that's really where it started, was educating myself about these things that I felt so hungry for, but I didn't understand at all. So that was my spiritual awakening, and then it had many layers to it, which I think spiritual awakenings absolutely do, because we are in a society that tends to think like one and done. Like, oh, I did the thing, I'm done, right? I healed the thing, I did the thing, I went to the thing, and then now I'm done. And it's like, no, you're not done. Everything is in levels and layers, and time is relative, and everything moves in a spirally circular motion. And so when that's the case, when that's the way energy works, it's going to take time. It's not just I've been awoken, now I'm done. happens in phases over a period of time.
I can understand that. Because like you said, like I've always kind of questioned things, but I never really like in my mind didn't even think of those when we were just saying about my spiritual awakening, that I kind of identify with the big one, the big catalyst one that I had after my husband passed away.
Yeah.
But I was having I guess little ones, forever. So it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of people, like you said, one and done, when it's kind of like a flower, blooming little by
Yeah.
little.
Exactly. And so, that was definitely one part of it. And for me, and for everybody, I just want everybody to know it's going to feel a little different, right? Not everybody is going to experience it the same way or at the same time. I worked with a woman who I call her the trailblazing goddess. She's 76 years old. She went to law school when women weren't looked upon kindly to going to law school, and she went through her spiritual awakening at 75 years old. And I remember her sitting across from me one day, and she said, I just don't understand how it took me so long to get here. And I was like, but everything happens in divine timing. It wasn't time for you to go through all of that yet, because there were other things that you had to accomplish that you probably wouldn't have accomplished if you went through a spiritual awakening, right? Because it changes everything. It changes the way you see stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was just like, I felt like at first it felt like I was questioning, and then I started to kind of deprogram. That's how it felt for me. And I think that most people do go through that at some point. I can't say, how there's 5 stages to grief, right? There's different phases to awakening, but just like the 5 stages to grief, you can bounce around. It's not just like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then once you get to stage 5, you're done. You graduate grief. No, we don't graduate grief. And we don't graduate spiritual awakening either. You can bounce around to different things back and forth, until you feel more anchored and more integrated into your own confidence in the spiritual field.
Did you have any, besides going through the books and teaching yourself, did you have any spiritual awakenings, since it's a multi, levels, that were super challenging for you? And what did you do to try to pull yourself through them?
So I remember being 19 years old, 19, 20, and I went through Dark Night of the Soul. And it was really hard, because at that time in my life, I was very well integrated with a lot of different spiritual practices, meditation, yoga, ceremony, ritual, devotional time, just so many different things that I would recognize and honor. But I remember feeling completely hopeless, that everything was hopeless. It actually really hurt me to look at the world, and all I could feel was suffering, and it was horrible. All I could feel was suffering. I saw the suffering of pigeons in a city. You know what I mean? Just like I'd look at the birds and I'd be like, oh my God, the birds. The birds are suffering. It's just smog and city and noise everywhere. Like everything to me just brought me so much pain. I cry when I see a tree cut down. I cry, just over seeing a squirrel dead on the side of the street. Everything, I felt like I was grieving for the world. and it
Mm-hmm.
felt hopeless. It felt so dark, and I was in such despair. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't want to live through this. I don't want to live through this. I can't live in a world that this is how it reflects to me. But this is the difference is it's really the veil of illusion is being lifted, you know, all the things that a lot of people care about that they think are really important, like getting that promotion or booking that cruise, and like all of these things that we think mean something in life, the new car, the bigger house. It's not to take or discredit anybody's work, you know what I mean? I feel like I don't want to discredit any of that. I want to live a luxurious lifestyle too. I want to be, I want to just be like, hey, let's go to Paris next week. That would be great. But that's not what makes us who we are. Is that the ability to do those things does not define who we are, or our character. And so for me, it was like, oh, wow, I'm learning about the stuff that's been hiding in the basement. And that's kind of how I describe it, because I know in Florida that we don't have basements, but I'm from up north and we do have basements. And I feel like everything sits in the basement kind of tucked away, until you need it. Christmas decorations, or, winter clothes, summer clothes, different things throughout the year, and things get shoved into the basement. And then there's those boxes that you haven't looked at in years. And that's where all of the juicy stuff is. It's covered in cobwebs, it's covered in a lot of other things, but it's holding a lot of energy, a lot of information. It is the key to unlocking your future. We have to go through those boxes. We have to look at what's in there. And it's not fun to look at it. I don't ever say, like, you're going to love looking at all the stuff in the boxes. It's going to be so much fun. You're going to thank me so much. Not until you get to the other side of that will anybody thank me for it, because it's hard and it hurts and it's painful. And in some ways, you have to kind of relive certain traumas and experiences that you've already had. But they take up a lot of room in your body, just like the boxes in the basement do, cobwebs and dust and all this stuff. And it takes up so much room in your body. And so it was like, I got to clean out the basement. I got to release. I have to clear. I get to do all these things. I don't have to do anything. Everything that I do is because I have an opportunity, and it isn't a chore. It is a gift, because I've cleared so much stuff. And that happens in layers too. You'll do some healing work on yourself, and you'll say, wow, that was hard, but I'm so glad I did it, because I feel so different now that it's done. I feel lighter. I feel brighter. I cleaned that box out of the basement. It's gone. Now I have room for new stuff to come in. But it's the key to your future. Like, you can't move forward with dragging that big, heavy energy around everywhere with you. But when it's ready to be revealed and it's ready to be sorted through, you will feel it bubbling to the surface. That's how it happened for me, was like, oh my gosh, all I want to do is cry. All I can feel is suffering. All I notice is sadness and despair, and people that need help and people who need love. And, it just was very apparent to me, but it was really reflecting so much more profoundly to me, because I was starting to witness it in myself, the suffering that I had experienced. And so it was like, it doesn't want to be there anymore. It's time to move forward. It's time to step into purpose and power and potential and really see what you're made of. And there's no room for that stuff where you're going.
So, for the people who aren't familiar with the term dark night of the soul, besides the things that you've already talked about, is there a definition that you can give to people so that they understand? And also, what do you do when you're in this state where you're feeling like there's no hope, and the world is such a horrible place?
Dark night of the soul is typically like a healing crisis, and I want to be very careful with that word crisis, because I think that is a scary word. Like, crisis is not a good word. People get a little like, ooh, crisis, huh? Like, I don't know if I want to go through all that. But what I'm saying is that there are frequencies that are existing, right? And the best way for me to describe this is like, I want you to feel absolute fear and absolute unconditional love at the same time. You physically can't do it, right? Like
You
it's
can't. Mm-hmm.
impossible to feel those two emotions simultaneously. So the way I would describe dark night of the soul is that there are energetic shifts that are happening within your own frequency. And those two very opposing polarizing frequencies cannot exist in the same space at the same time. And so it's like it's starting to push out all of the lower vibrations to make room for the higher vibrations. This all starts to kind of like seep into the consciousness, and now you're starting to observe it. Now you're really starting to feel it. You're aware of it, not necessarily to the point where you can be like, oh, this is when I didn't make the basketball team when I was 14, that's why I feel so mopey right now. You might not have that sharp of an awareness at first, but you can feel sadness, and this is your body saying, I want to heal. It's time to release. It's time to connect with some of these lower vibrations so that I can process them and heal them and release them and clear them, making room for the bigger, better, higher frequencies to come in and up level your entire existence. So that's how I would describe Dark Night of the Soul. I want to caution the word crisis, but it certainly can feel like a crisis when you're going through it. What I would absolutely do is know that, first of all, this is temporary. This is a temporary situation. This is something that I think when you feel it, it feels like it could last forever, but it's not going to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like this, I think you went through it. I went through it, and we're like, it's never going to end. Oh my God, this is my life. And that's why it feels hopeless, right? Because you're just like moping
Mm-hmm.
around crying. You're feeling all this suffering. You're observing very like undesirable things that you probably don't want to connect with. And so we have to have like very mature conversations about this instead of like pushing things off to the side. Humans get really good at pushing things off to the side. It's like, oh no, I got to do this. I have to work today. I can't focus on that. It's like, no, but when you get out of work, you should really come back and focus on this. Don't distract yourself with Netflix. Don't distract yourself with TikTok. Like, really start doing the work. Now, the work is not easy work to do. It can be done in a solitary way. I did the majority of that for myself. I do think that if you work with somebody, it's going to go a lot faster because they're going to help highlight certain things for you that I think are a little bit harder to highlight for yourself. But overall, you're going to heal. And if you say to yourself, okay, I recognize this is temporary. This is something that I'm working through. I'm processing. I'm healing things so that I can move forward. I'm releasing things so I can call in bigger, better things down the line. I think that's what we have to remind ourselves. And also having a network of people that, are supportive. So that could be, you find that in a Facebook group. I have Facebook groups. I don't know if you do yet or what your situation is there, but it's so important to have outreach and support from other people who are also in the spiritual field industry that you trust and connect with and can build a rapport with, because it's also not a one size fits all thing. I've had unfortunately some incidents with former teachers that they misrepresented themselves. And so it's like, do your homework, like ask questions, do your homework. I would love to think that all of the leaders in the spiritual industry, the teachers, the mentors, the coaches, the psychics, mediums, channels, et cetera, are all in it for the integrity of, this beautiful, magical, amazing thing that we're doing, and that we are all about the collective because we're all in it together. But there's, just like any industry, there's some that are not so great. Did I answer your question though?
You did.
Good.
So is self-love and acceptance really the answer to your
Ooh.
spiritual awakening?
So I'm super jazzed up about this question. I'm so excited to answer this question. You sent me the questions, and when I saw that, I said, oh my God, I can't wait to answer this. So I will tell you this because I have been doing so much. I've been doing a lot of channeling. I've been getting a lot of downloads. I also experienced a loss in October. My stepfather had passed away, and and I was the one who spoke at his services. It's like there was a lot, and there's just so many moving parts. And so I'm like going through all of these different emotions and feelings. And so I just started journaling. I started journaling so much. And I'm an avid journaler, but I was journaling sometimes 3 times a day, just about like something that I felt in my body. Where do you feel it in your body? What does it represent? Why is it there? What does it connect to? Where did it come? Like going down the rabbit hole with literally every thought and feeling I was having. And then I touched upon self-love. And then I got a little irritated. I was like, what is this self-love stuff? I feel like if we say it to ourselves, self-love, there's something, it feels like a shell to me. It feels like an empty shell. But when I say this one, it's very different. Self-value. So I really felt into this for a while. I meditated on this for a while. I journaled on this for a while. And I was like, what is the deal with this self-love crap? And what I decided was that it's really not about self-love, because of the fact that our culture is obsessed with the word love, and it feels kind of empty for a lot of different reasons, right? How many times have you been told that you are loved by somebody, and then something happened and it was like, I'm not feeling very loved right now, right? It feels like a transactional love. Or you work with somebody for 2 days and you're like, oh my God, I just love you so much. Love feels I feel like it should feel a certain way. Like when you say I love you to your children or your partner, or somebody who you have a very deep connection to, versus I love this TikTok video, I love this show, I love going outside to run, I love being in my garden. It's like in Greek they have multiple words for love, don't they? Like the agape love, there's like different types of love. In the English language, we just have one word, love. And so it's taken out of context so much. And I think so many people are screwed up with the idea and the concept of how we could possibly love ourselves. So what I decided to do was on Thanksgiving, I hosted Thanksgiving this year, and I am so the person that has to I don't even drink, but I got up and I have to do a toast and I have to do a speech. And that's just the person that I am. I'm very, very dramatic like that. But what I had said to everybody was like, I don't just love every single person who is sitting at this table right now. I want you to know that I actually recognize the value of who you are in my life. And that felt very different, right?
That's
like,
great.
Can you imagine, like, I'm saying, like, JoJo, I love you, versus JoJo, I not only love you, but I recognize the value that you represent in my life every day. Like, that's a very different thing.
That's deep.
It's deep. And so
Much deeper.
It's like, let's harness that. So it's not necessarily about finding self-love for myself. It's about recognizing my value. And once I recognize my value, it is the most beautiful, unconditional love and self-acceptance I could have ever possibly imagined. But it didn't start from like, okay, I'm going to love myself today. It was like I had to really have compassion for myself. I had to really forgive myself. I had to take that time every day to remind myself that Renee, I have compassion for you. I have compassion for your human journey. I forgive you for the mistakes that you have made, the errors in your human ways, all of those things. And I truly value how you show up to, do better every single day, to try hard, to try a little bit harder every day, So I think it's more about value than it is about love, because we screwed up love. Unfortunately, we can fix it.
We definitely did.
Right? We can fix it. It's just going to take some time. And, but I say focus on value for now and mix that with the love.
Yes, that definitely changes the meaning. And I hope that does also help people understand what self-love truly should be. Accepting yourself, valuing yourself for all of the gifts that you're able to provide. As your authentic self, which includes your faults. Like everything that God created you to be is exactly the way it's supposed to be. Like we're all these little puzzle pieces with different edges, but yet if we were all our authentic selves, showing up as ourselves, can you imagine what that puzzle would look like with all the pieces connecting perfectly? Like it would just be this beautiful world, right? Like,
Yes, yes, and I think it's important for everybody to realize, like, this was something I taught in a workshop a couple months ago, and it again, this is like after these 3 months of downloads and journaling and meditations and channeling, when I was going through a deeper healing, and I had so many realizations about what what we're here to do, how we are here to support not just ourselves, but each other. And it's such a beautiful thing to do, is to recognize that we're all in this together. We all have something to contribute, you know? And I think that
mhm.
people are so afraid. There's so much fear in this world. And I understand that there's also good reasons to have those fears, you know, but do we let our fear stop us from being empathetic and kind and compassionate and forgiving? You know, it's about opening up the heart. That's what the Christ light is. And that's why I think I also got very frustrated with, people trying to push me to make my confirmation, because I was like, this religion has nothing to do with Christ. You know what I mean? Rites of passage, and I can't eat this wafer until somebody does a thing and I wear a pretty dress, and then you want to do this over here and confirm me, and I don't care about any of that. And Christ didn't care about any of that. So, it's like we have an opportunity to find a real alignment. And if that is within your religion and you feel really great about it, I am not here to rain on your parade. Keep going, but for those people who are just like, I feel lost, I feel like I'm questioning my beliefs, I'm questioning my reality, I'm questioning the people, I'm questioning the programming, I'm questioning, I'm contemplating, my mind is kind of going off the rails lately. Sometimes I question if I'm actually crazy. I've been there and I have felt absolutely batshit, and I get it, because you're looking at everything that you once believed in. Everything. I mean, like time, the calendar, like these major staples in our everyday life, right? And it's all an illusion. It's all an
Mhm.
illusion. So I think it can be really scary at first when you're like, whoa, like, I just heard that time doesn't exist. What am I supposed to do with that? Right? Like, what am I supposed to do with that information right now? I think time does exist, and I heard it doesn't, and I can kind of see why it doesn't. But I have to show up at a doctor's appointment at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Does that mean I shouldn't, or I should? Should I call them and be like, we can go crazy trying to figure out, like, where do we belong and what should we
Mhm.
be doing?
Agreed, agreed. And
Yeah.
when you are more aware, it makes it sometimes is not always your brain doesn't really like it. Your brain does not like being aware all the time because it's like, well, what if I do this wrong because I know better? Like, what if I like what about this? What about that? Oh, but if this doesn't exist, does that mean that if I do this wrong, then this? But then you're like, well, wait, I can't do anything wrong. But then that doesn't make sense. Like
Right.
you just
I got
start
into a
spinning.
Yeah, I did like an Instagram reel a few months ago too, where it was like trying to manifest something, like people trying to manifest, because I think that everybody's got like this different thing on manifestation. And so the reel was kind of like me sitting there and I'm like, I desire this thing. And then I was like, oh my God, I can't say desire. I want it. No, I can't say want. I have to sit here and I have to embody it. No, I can't embody it. I don't know what it feels like, and it's just like all the different things that, because if we're paying attention to all the different ways and all the different things, and then we get caught up in our head, like, is it okay for me to think this? Is it okay for me to say that word? Is it okay for me to sit here and think about it? Should I not think about it? Should I just pretend it's already here? Like, and so what do we do with that? I really feel from the depths of my soul, and I have been playing around with this for a while, be happy. Just find your happiness. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah. I
love,
actually
like follow your
stopped
heart.
trying to manifest,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the things that really, really mattered, I realized I didn't have control over manifesting the outcomes, anyways, right? So I decided that the universe knows much better than I about what
Mm-hmm.
I want and what needs to come into my life. So I just choose to say, all right, just bring it to me. Just whatever it is, I just want to be happy and feel abundant. That's the key. I don't need to be a millionaire, but I want to feel like I'm okay. And that's what a lot of people, everybody's like, I want to win a million. I want $1 million. What are you going to do with $1 million? Like, can you even hold that kind of energy? Because it's a lot of energy to hold $1 million. Like, is
Yes.
your body able to support that? Like, you should just be happy if you can pay your bills every day. To be honest, I hate to say that that's the
Yeah.
minimum, but until we're happy with where that we have what we need, it's hard to manifest anything from that. So I stopped trying to mess with my manifestation, because I'm like, all right, what if I'm manifesting something that isn't, I always say, in my best interest, but if it's not going to take me, it's going to take me off my path and give me what I think I want, but not what is really what I need or what I should be doing. I stopped trying to manifest because I felt like I was getting more in my own way
We
and
get in our
just
way a lot,
trying to stay.
don't we?
Yeah. Yeah. Just
Mm-hmm.
try to stay in my own, peace, and just know that I'm where I'm supposed to be every day. That's hard enough as it is. And you're going to try to manifest your future. Like, you don't know what you want. You really don't. Nobody knows what they really want.
No, and it never
But yeah,
turns
I
out the
just
way
laugh
that
at
you're
all these
going to
manifestors.
anyway. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
The outcome, you
No.
can
And
have a million
it
different
could be
ideas
bad.
about what it's going to look like. It doesn't ever look like what you think it's going to look like, whether it's the worst case scenario or
Mm-hmm.
the best case scenario. And really, it's about, like, we could take this to like a freaking quantum level if we want to. You know what I mean? Because I love working in that quantum energy, the energy of like no thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of like repetition in our lives. And so, in order to step into a higher frequency, we have to kind of break up that repetition, but we also have to really appreciate the repetition, because that repetition serves us in extraordinary ways. It really does. And I talk about it in terms of, like, if you are an employee, you're having that check clear every other Thursday or Friday
Mm-hmm.
is like, that's a good thing. It's, you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
necessarily worry about it. It's automatically supposed to be there. So people that check clears, they wake up on Thursday or Friday morning and they're like, oh yeah, good, it's there. But they don't necessarily say, I'm so grateful that it cleared another Friday. Like, I got it again. It came through again effortlessly. It is here. It has arrived. Thank you, universe. And so, if we can't be extraordinarily grateful for the things that show up in that repetitious pattern, in the predictability of things, then how can we be grateful for anything beyond that wants to show up? you know, in addition to what is predictable in our lives. So we have to stretch. And I feel like the stretch comes from the initial stretch, because usually if you're not ready for a big change, I'm going to say, change up your routine, take a different route to work, drive home a different way, flip flop some aspects of your routine, do something a little bit different. If you're the one that likes to wake up and work out first thing in the morning, and you have like this rigorous routine that you try to stick to, I'm going to say, break up the routine a little bit, have a little fun with it, break up the monotony, because that helps you stretch into a new field of possibilities.
Yes, I agree. I was like, try to get into a different energy.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to attract new energy. Mm-hmm. So, for people that might be going through a spiritual awakening, what would be the signs? What would they be looking for to determine if that's what they're going through?
Oh gosh. Okay. So there's quite a few symptoms of a spiritual awakening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like some of it can feel like a dissociation from reality. that really freaked me out, just kind of feeling dissociated from my current reality. You're going to probably have different sleep patterns in terms of like your dreams might really kick up. You might notice that your dreams are getting very vivid. The messages are kind of changing. You might notice different synchronicities in your life, such as we talk a lot about like angel numbers and synchronicities with numbers, things like that. You might feel like you are having more interactions even with nature, like finding feathers, crossing paths with particular animals as messengers that are trying to help you move forward and pick up on the essence of that energy. Let's see, trouble sleeping, aches and pains. You will probably notice that your taste buds change, how you communicate changes, how you remember things change, like all of it changes. I remember feeling like I had the best memory in the world. But when I started really kicking up my psychic gifts and really like developing them on purpose, oh my gosh, I felt like I couldn't remember basic things, like that I had for breakfast that morning. I know that that might be a common thing for most people. That was not common for me though. So for me, it was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Am I losing my mind again? Like, am I going crazy? I would have those questions periodically. And this is not to say this is the same as the feeling of like mental illness. If you feel that you have a mental illness, or you are not necessarily feeling these symptoms dissipating, talk to a professional, because it's important, right? It's important to get yourself taken care of. If you are feeling like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me, I'm going crazy. But a lot of the times in a spiritual awakening, you do feel like that regardless. But how you choose to eat food, I gave up alcohol and I gave up meat 4 years ago. Because it was no longer in vibrational alignment with myself. It was not necessarily because I was like, I don't want to kill animals anymore. It was because the vibration of the food inside my body was not feeling good to me. It was like my body kept saying, stop putting that in there. Stop putting that in there. Stop putting that in there. My body doesn't want to process those things anymore. And so I eliminated them from my diet, So you might notice dietary changes. You might notice that things just don't taste the same as they did before. How you communicate with people will probably also change, just in terms of like, you're going to pay attention to things that you didn't usually pay attention to. And that can be an interesting reflection, when you're starting to pick up things about people that you didn't pick up on before. And I will say that if you are continuing to move forward in that spiritual awakening, meaning I am in this, I'm ready for this, I've got this. The people that are in your life now may not always be the ones that stay in your life. Because if you vibrationally start going here, 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 and they're still hanging out down here doing the same thing day in and day out, then you can't make them leap up here to meet you. The only thing that you can do in this situation is drop down when you're with them to meet them at their level, right? And they don't know what it's like to go from here to here. So it doesn't mean that it's a blowout. It just means that sometimes people gradually, organically kind of fall off.
Yeah, I did notice that there were some people who no longer could talk like it was weird. Certain individuals, they could no longer talk to me on the phone. They would go to text. And then after that, then they couldn't they just couldn't even they weren't even in my reality anymore. They just kind of fell away. And I understood that it was part of the process. So I didn't really, some people would have, tried to keep those people in their lives. And not that I love them all. But I know sometimes that for certain individuals who do not like to see the light in their face all the time, makes them uncomfortable. And I don't want to make people, I love them enough to know that sometimes my presence could make them uncomfortable, because they don't want to see the things in themselves that they know that they need to make better. And I respect that now. Before, I would have been like, wrestle them to the ground, be like, come on, you want to love people, love.
Yes. Yeah, I understand that. because we have a different vision, right? Like we have a completely different vision. It's a more expanded and more like, I don't know, maybe a more celestial, cosmic, divine vision. And so we want to help everyone. We want like if we've experienced this massive shift and we're like, I don't feel the same way I used to feel about things. I actually trust myself now. I actually believe in my capabilities to do brilliant things. I go out there and I do things that I would have never done before. Like that's 100% worth it. And it's such an incredible reward. It really, really is. But I do believe that a lot of people, when they start going through the healing aspect, they pump the brakes. There's a brake pumping moment where they're just like, I don't know. And the reason is because they start to feel themselves change. And then they think to themselves, well, if I heal so much deeper, so much more, who will I become? Will I still love my partner? Will I still want to be close with my children? Well, like these are the things that people think of, because I've seen people quit their job after a spiritual awakening. I've seen people leave their partner after a spiritual awakening. I've seen really wild, like sell my house, buy a freaking little miniature thing and travel the country type stuff, living off the grid. People, it's not a bad thing. There is no good or bad. It's just a thing. It's just a thing that you're doing. But it's the fact that people don't feel like they have control when they're stepping into it. I don't know what the outcome of this is going to be. So I am really afraid of, the bottom dropping out, losing people, losing myself, losing my job, losing losing my house. If all of a sudden now I can't show up at the same job to work anymore, that's a lot of pressure. But understand that it doesn't happen like that. You know what I mean? Again, this is a story, a narrative that we create in our own minds it's the ego protecting us, and so we have to make a decision for ourselves. We have to have very mature conversations about this and about the decisions that we make. We're making big decisions, but it's not like all of a sudden the world is going to stop turning. People really fear failure and disappointment so much that they would stay in the fear and the disappointment that they're already comfortable with versus a new form of it that they don't quite understand. But it's like your nervous system will regulate and you will adapt, you will adjust, you will move forward. You have to, this is where the trust comes in, right? Trusting yourself, trusting the universe, trusting your guides and your angels. Like, I'm going to get through this, right? And they're like, yeah, we got you. And you're like, I'm going to get through this, right? You're just going to say it more and more every day until all of a sudden you wake up and you feel like you're floating on a cloud and you're like, I don't know why I panicked so hardcore about that, but I feel really good.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. When you got to be more present to experience it. And when you're in that present of it's great when you're in the good present. Like when everything's great, you're like, oh yeah, I know everything works out for me. It's all good, But then when you're in the present where you're like, everything's falling down and you're like, I don't know who I am. I don't know I don't know if reality is real. I don't know if we live in a simulation. Like once you get into it and you really start going down that rabbit hole, like your brain starts to bend in ways that it doesn't know how to bend.
Yes, it's like the tower card in tarot.
Which is exactly what I got before all this stuff started happening.
It's like you pull the tower card and you're like, I think I might reshuffle just to make sure that wasn't a mistake, because it feels like a very overwhelming card. But I have to say that 25 plus years of doing this, I feel like when the challenges show up now, I'm like, let's do this. Before, when I did not trust myself and I didn't necessarily have the level of courage, confidence, conviction that I do now, it was like, oh God, oh boy. I had to really mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically prepare myself for whatever I was going to do. Now it just happens in a much more flowing way. It's been beautiful where I could go through a really hard time and sit in it, not distract myself, not pull myself away from it, not tell myself a different narrative, sit in it, feel it, every aspect of
Mm-hmm.
it. And I held a class at the beginning of the year where I did this with people. I did this with women. I said, I want you to think about something that's really uncomfortable about your growth, about your expansion, about the direction that you're moving into your life, and or the direction that you would like to move into your life. And I want you to feel the anxiousness coming up to the surface about that, about making big moves, and whether it be an investment or just developing something that has not yet been developed, or healing something that hasn't yet been healed. And then I said, I want you to sit in it. I want you to sit in the discomfort. I want you to allow it to creep in and to become a part of you, because it's already a part of you. We just usually push it down or push it away or try to distract ourselves with things. And I said, we're not going to do that today. We're going to feel every little tiny emotion. We're going to feel the resistance. We're going to feel all of it. And, it was emotional for a couple of people. Other people seemed to just experience the discomfort, but they proved to themselves that I can handle this. That moment where all of the anxiety and the trepidation and the anticipation and the hesitation and, the fear of what we do not know, once it reaches that climax, it has nowhere to go but down. And so if you can just allow yourself
Mm-hmm.
to sit in the discomfort of your beliefs, of your values, of the reality, of the pain, of the disappointments, whatever it is, you will recognize that it is not a failure. It is not a disappointment. It is just a part of your journey. And the milestones aren't what make the journey. It's all of the stuff that happens in between. Because when the milestones happen, I dare somebody tell me that they sit in it for more than a day. Like you're like, I'm gonna hit this milestone. It's coming. I feel it. It's coming. And then it happens. And you had to tweak and maneuver and do so many different things to get there. And then once you get there, you might spend a day feeling the gratitude for what has manifested in your life as a result of the work that you put in. And then right after that day, you're like, okay, what's the next goal? What's next? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, if we could just stay more present and sit in the discomfort, sit in the gratitude, sit in the love, sit in the bliss, sit in the deliciousness. Oh my gosh, see, that's the quantum stuff that really gets things moving, and collapses timelines around us in a really pretty
Mm-hmm.
spectacular way.
Well, when you said about once you go through this, you wanting to inform other people, that
Mm-hmm.
was a huge thing for me at first. Like it was like, I need to tell everybody, like, and then you almost feel like it's like almost like a involuntary like reaction. Like I was just like trying to tell everybody, and half the people I was talking to had no idea what the hell I was even saying. um and then I had to like it almost like recalibrated automatically, that said, all right, you can't do this, like you're wasting your energy trying to get people. But I was so terrified, I was so afraid that I was going to move up, or not move up, but you know what I'm saying, like ascend, and these my family or the people that I love was going to be like left behind, and I didn't want to see that happen. So at first I was like all about it, then I was like, all right, if when it's their time, they have their own journey. Like I had to talk to myself and explain to myself, everybody's on their own speed. Nobody pushed you to yours, so you need to let them live their journeys. And that was a hard one, honestly.
Yeah, I get it. It was because we want to help so badly, right? And because it's like, if you had the best chocolate chip cookie recipe in the world, and then you had a friend who was making crappy chocolate chip cookies, you would want them to have your recipe, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not like the most horrible thing in the world, right? We're like, oh my gosh, but I have the best. You've been making crappy cookies. I'm doing you a favor by giving you this recipe that is world class chocolate chip cookies. And but maybe she likes her cookies the way they are,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we don't like the cookies because we know what it's like to have really great cookies, but she didn't ask us for the recipe. So inserting ourselves in her journey not only made her feel bad, thinking like, oh my gosh, I need a new cookie recipe, right? But now she's questioning everything about her technique, about who she is, so we could insert ourselves in people's lives and derail them. And so as somebody who's
Yeah, throw
empathic,
them into a pit that they're not ready for.
no, and ultimately hurting their journey versus helping their journey. We're like, I know
Mhm.
something you don't know, and they're like, oh, really? You do? And you're like, yeah, you have crappy cookies, and I have the best ones around, and I want to help you. And but we don't want to put people off. We want them to feel empowered. And we want them to feel as
Mhm.
empowered as we have felt empowered. And so we might need some guidance, we might need some assistance, but we definitely don't want to insert ourselves where we haven't been asked to contribute. And we can let people know, this is who I am, this is what I do, I've noticed ABC, and if you need help with XYZ, please let me know. I'd be happy to support you. But yeah, it's a really hard thing. And I had to tell myself, Renee, keep your nose clean. Don't stick it in this situation. You could be hurting it instead of helping it. They have their own soul contracts. And just because you might know something that they don't, it doesn't mean that they have to learn it today.
Agreed. Agreed. So grief of my late husband is what really kicked my big spiritual awakening, even though I probably had many ones over periods of time. I know I've had many ones, but this one really made me feel like it stripped everything away and almost like a blank slate. I always
Yeah.
describe it as I felt like a baby in an adult body. Like my brain had no way of connecting information, because all the beliefs that held things together, like money and materialistic things and other values, were or karmic, you know, karmic stuff that was
Mm-hmm.
holding beliefs of unworthiness, and all this stuff was gone. So I didn't know how to connect stuff to it. So besides grief, are there other catalysts to spiritual awakenings? Like, would you say like traumas and other things like that would catapult people?
Definitely. I feel like I've seen so many individuals go through like life-changing situations. It can be getting a divorce. You know what I mean? Like I've seen people separate. I've seen the like trauma, near death experiences. I mean, NDEs are huge for awakenings where people come back and they're just like, they know things that they didn't know before. They connect with things that they couldn't connect with before. They're talking to dead people and seeing spirit and stuff like that. So, and I can't really say that there was anything super in particular that catalyzed my spiritual awakening, except for, I mean, my great grandmother had passed away and she lived with us. She had passed away about a year before that. She was 91. It wasn't like this horrific thing. She's actually my cat now, to tell you the truth. But she's back. Um, it can, I think it's important for everybody to know that there are a variety of circumstances that can absolutely catalyze a spiritual awakening. And there can also be absolutely nothing that catalyzes a spiritual awakening, right? Because when I think back on my stuff, I don't remember going through anything significant that started the questioning. It was just like I was being, you know what it was for me? I was being pressured by people to be something that I wasn't. And I felt the resistance. And it made me feel, it actually started to make me feel angry because I felt like nobody was listening to me. Nobody could see me. Nobody could hear me. Nobody was caring about my opinion and what I wanted for myself. But in my life, that was, my childhood, we all have inner child stuff. That was a major inner child thing for me, was being unseen, unheard, just that feeling that nobody cares, nobody takes me seriously, nobody cares about how I'm feeling right now or how this experience is really impacting me. And so for me, it was like, okay, you're going to go do this now. And I was like, no, I'm not. That was the first time I really spoke up about what I wanted for myself as a 15-year-old, not just like extending my curfew so I could stay at a party. Like this was like the real shit, man. You know what I mean? Like I went
Mhm.
against the grain of generations and generations of my family line. But I'll tell you what, in the process, I have healed a lot of my family line and they don't even know it.
Yeah, I know. It is like you said, it's interesting how that works too. Like as you heal stuff, it heals them. It's very interesting how connected we really, really are.
Yeah.
Um, so what are the stages of an awakening, and how would you guide someone through these stages?
Okay. So there's a few stages, and the one that like the first one to me, it seems to be the questioning. You know what I mean? Like it starts with like a question of, and it can be any kind of question. It could be like, am I real? Why am I here? How did I get here? You know, and I think that it does start with that kind of stuff. You start questioning your existence, your purpose, you know, your soul, your consciousness, etc. Where did it come from? Where does it go? All that kind of stuff. And then it can kind of expand outward into the world around you and the other people. So questioning is definitely one of those top symptoms. The next one I would say is the curiosity, you know, really starting to look into things that you probably haven't looked into before, such as what are chakras? What is energy? How does energy flow? Different things like that. Whether, you know, you might be led to a lot of different things. You might all of a sudden feel like, I feel like I want to learn more about mediumship. I feel like I want to learn more about chakras. I feel like I want to learn more about healing, psychic connection, channeling, astrology. I mean, we could go in a million different areas with this, but it starts with just like this curiosity. The first curiosity I had was astrology. I was 13. I was very, you know, this is when people read newspapers. And so we would, you know, we get the arts and entertainment section. I was like, where's my horoscope? And I didn't really understand what it meant. But then I started asking, like, when's your birthday? I want to read you your horoscope. 13 years old, that's where it started. The curiosity picked up. And then by the time I was 15, you know, that's when everything started really compounding for me. But, you know, pay attention to the curiosity. Are you mesmerized by the stars and the moon and the planets? Are you mesmerized by plants and nature? Like what calls to you? What pulls you in? Follow it, you know, follow it and trust that spirit is leading you to something that is destined to be a part of your life, because whatever is destined to be a part of your world, you it will not pass you by. It will not. It will be there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And you will always be able to find it when you need it. But the next step after the curiosity, I would say, is there's like a dissociation process, you know, where you kind of start breaking free and you're kind of like feeling a little detached from the reality. Like now I'm like, oh my gosh, I used to connect with everybody at work. I don't feel like I'm connecting with everybody at work anymore. I feel like they're talking about, you know, water cooler talk. And I'm thinking about, you know, the solar eclipse that's coming in April and the major impact it's going to have on my life. You know, like you start to notice that there's these differences. Then the next step would be healing. You're going to start healing some stuff, because you're going to start, like, that dark night of the soul usually starts coming in after the curiosity, and after a little bit of that dissociation starts creeping in. You're like, whoa, where am I going? Who am I? What is this? Is this even real? Is this a simulation? Am I a simulation? What is illusion? Is everything illusion? What's real then? You know? And so that can definitely trigger a major, like, dark night of the soul, the healing crisis, but not in a way that, like, oh my gosh, you're going to like completely fall apart and unravel. It's just going to feel like it. It's the emotional aspect. And then after that is the integration. That's when you start really bringing in the stuff. It's landing. You're feeling it land. You're starting to actually allow it to be a part of your world. You know, doesn't mean you're, you know, coming out of the spiritual closet with everything, but you're allowing it to be more present in your everyday world. Maybe you are checking your horoscope now every day. Maybe you are, you know, looking into getting a Reiki certification, different things like that. And you can feel the shifts now start to happen. That's like that final stage. But then you're going into ascension. It's like awaken, align, ascend. And then that's going to be a process all in itself. That's the continuation. That's where I'm at right now, is like, I still heal. I absolutely still heal. If anybody tells you, oh, I'm done healing, no, they're not. They
Yeah,
fooled you. No, you're
I
never really
know.
done.
I wish I
Like,
was done. I thought
I
I
know,
would be done, but I
I
was wishing. I
know.
was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. But
I
no.
said to myself, if I just if I just like agree to the fact that I will be on a perpetual journey of healing and realignment and, learning, development, etc., then I don't have anything else to really worry about because I know that I'm always doing one of those things. So it doesn't matter how
Mm-hmm.
advanced you are. There's always something that you should be doing. You're either learning something, healing something, or expanding something. And so that's pretty much how I live my life. Once you start, like, the first few layers of healing are the hardest. I just want to say, like, it is the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
And it does get easier because as you continue the realignment process within your soul, you start to connect with things differently and it doesn't hit you as hard. You can transition through your healing a little bit more smoothly, a little bit more, like in a more timely manner. Things that would have taken you months to heal are now actually taking you like hours to days. It's not as drastic, it's not as
Mm-hmm.
intense. You will still go through the healing, it will still be uncomfortable, but it's not going to be as intense as it was, I think, those first couple of years you're really in it.
Yes, yes. Well, Renee, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your wisdom with everyone. I really think it'll help a lot of people. I know it helped me when I was going through it, so I really appreciate it. Do you want to tell everyone where they can find you and,
Yes,
get
I would love
information on you?
to. My goodness, yes. So it's interestingly enough, I on the 22nd, I made a commitment to go live for 365 days straight. So I have committed to 365 live. And there's a variety of ways that you can catch that. So Renee Masse is, I do have my Facebook. I just actually started a professional page for that because I had all of these other things. And so you can follow me on my professional page, Renee Masse. Psychic Society with the Valkyrie Mystic is one of my free groups that is more geared towards the person who is in the spiritual awakening, development, spiritual gifts type stuff. I also have another group that is called L Empire. And L is ELLE because it's all about her. It's all about she. It is her empire. And this is for women who are really fine tuning themselves. Not necessarily all of their spiritual gifts, but to me, this is about creating more conscious women that, it's like putting the money and the wealth of the world in the right hands. That's what it's all about. And so that group is specifically for women only, and it is about, building their best life. And then I am on Instagram at the Valkyrie Mystic and at L Empire Inc. So there's a few ways that you can connect with me, and my website is thevalkyriemystic.com. That's it.
Well, thank you so much, Renee.
You're
I
welcome.
want to thank everybody for joining us, and I hope that this information will help you. Please stay tuned to next week. We have another special guest, and have a blessed and magical week. Love
Yes.
infinitely, my friends.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching. If this week's message spoke to you, please share it so that it can help someone else too. If you need advice or are interested in being part of the show, you can DM me on Instagram or email me at jojo'sinfiniteuniverse@gmail.com. Until next time, love infinitely, my friends.